Well, guys, I'm here doing a review for John Wick Chapter 4. I know it's a movie that came out a while ago. It feels like a movie that should be out now because it's June, but man, did they choose their release date for this movie right. I mean, like, late March was perfect for an adult action movie. And I just gotta say, guys, John Wick Chapter 4, along with Across the Spider-Verse, is one of the most impressive films I've seen this year, just in terms of its scope. And I guess I could say, as a blockbuster, they are the most impressive blockbusters. Like, obviously there are movies out there that, haven't even come out yet that are very unique. Like, from this year, just the independent films, like last year we had Everything Everywhere All at Once, we had The Northman, Nope, which was a blockbuster, but still, John Wick Chapter 4 is a movie that is just so good. I really love this movie because it's doing things very different than, a lot of other movies. And there's a lot of other Marvel movies and even DC movies now that follow these same standard plots. John Wick takes a standard plot and it, turns it into an opera of action and violence. And it really just is so much more than an action movie. And I guess, one of the reasons I'm motivated to do this review is because Oliver Stone just put out some comments saying something like, this movie is disgusting and he hated it. He also happened to watch the movie on a plane. I feel like if he had seen it in a theater, he still would have hated it. But I'm like, Oliver Stone, all you have directed in the past couple of years, or past 15 years, have been political films. He did Savages, which honestly I really liked. But he also did Natural Born Killers, and he wrote Scarface. I don't know. I feel there is an audience perspective thing. I saw this movie, but I said my dad would not like this movie. There's just parts of it certain people aren't, built for. But let's talk about what makes John Wick Chapter 4 good. Let's talk about, as escapist cinema, why it's so good. In the same way Across the Spider-Verse is so good as escapist cinema. What makes this movie so great? So John Wick, it stands out among action films, captivating audiences with its impressive execution and the subversion of genre expectations. Basically, from the meticulously crafted set pieces to its simple yet engaging narrative, this is a standout movie. And unlike the convoluted and messy plots often found in other action franchises, John Wick Chapter 4 just focuses for a simple yet effective narrative. There's a singular story, it's easy to follow, and the approach lets viewers immerse themselves. It's really interesting too because you have really good characters here, like Kane, or the Marquise, played by Bill Skarsgård, or Mr. Nobody, who is our first look into the world of just regular dudes in this John Wick universe. I find that interesting because everyone in the John Wick franchise seems to be extravagantly wealthy, or these figures of power like Winston. It's so over the top, but then you get a guy like Mr. Nobody who's in this movie for the first time, and he's a new character, and it's just a perfect contribution. It adds just a little bit to the story. All you need is a scene with him and his notebook and his dog, and you just get the picture right there. It's very simple, very effective. It doesn't need to explain itself, which I like. And another thing I like is just how it is very simple and kind of takes place in this world that is almost out of time and place. Where I'll get to that later. But I also really like Rita Sawayama's character. She's great. The fight scenes with her are fantastic. And it really just adds an extra level to the movie. You want to talk about how you make a movie good, how you pace it well. This movie has excellent pacing. Right from the opening sequence, it opens with a fist punching this wood block, and it just hooks you in. It's hypnotic. And then from that point, we build up, we meet characters. Rita Sawayama's character is great because she almost serves not as comedic relief at all, but just as a lighthearted place to go to, because the movies are so dark, and she is in it, and she has this relationship with her father, and then it segues to this action sequence very well. It's just done very well, and I think that when you're talking about levels and how you can kind of keep amping it up, John Wick does this perfectly. It's like a video game where you keep meeting new characters and unlocking new achievements, and it works. It feels like you're earning your way up. And one of the film's standout features is its masterful execution of action sequences. I mean, each set piece is carefully planned and flawlessly executed, and it results in this visually stunning, pulse-pounding fight sequences. The attention to detail and choreography is one of the best things. I thought Dan Lauston, who did the cinematography, is, insanely talented. The Berlin fight sequence was just one of the best scenes in the movie. I mean, it injects this renewed surge of energy into the story, and the fact is, it's positioned right at the 1 hour and 22-minute mark. And I feel right at that point, it'd be slowing down or losing steam. But I remember seeing this movie. I saw this movie like 4 times, honestly. And when I saw it the first time, I was like just so hooked at that point. I didn't want it to end because it gets to a point where you're halfway through this 3 hour movie and it kind of like doesn't slow down, but it engages you. The scene with Scott Adkins and Donnie Yen and Keanu and Mr. Nobody, Shamir Anderson, so good. Because then it leads to one of the best fight sequences, which has some of the best music that, they've created. Like Castlevania's Blood Code and the Wet Work. Just the different songs they've created for this film are fantastic. And, when Oliver Stone says something like, this movie's disgusting, honestly, I'm not going to, say, I might, you might roll your eyes on that, but there is a part of me that understands people aren't built for movies like this. I think if I took my dad to it, he would hate these scenes. But I think if you're looking for, greatly choreographed action, you're going to get that. And also, it's a movie that's built around, like, things that might not even work. Like, Keanu Reeves is obviously not a great actor. He really isn't. The lines he says in this film are hilariously bad. Like, yeah. Especially when he even goes, amen. But it works because of how sparingly he speaks, like, or even when he says, Sacre-Cœur. Like, I remember reading all these articles when the movie came out. People were saying, like, this is only he only has 380, like, words or lines. And I'm like, that's where he only speaks 380 words. I'm like, that's whatever. It works for him. He is the visual centerpiece of the movie. You don't have to have him speaking all the time. It's just really well done, and I think that kind of proves the point more about how it's more of a visual showcase than it is a movie laced with terrible dialogue. There's Marvel movies that have no substance, awful action, and awful jokes. Like, look at Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, which came out a month before this one. Like, what did that movie offer to anyone? It was just awful sequences of people against blue screen, and it also was Michael Douglas and Michelle Pfeiffer talking about how she might have had sex with a guy, like, in a pocket dimension. Like, really think about that. That's what the whole movie was. It was just... And then, like, Cassie Lang is in it, and you're like, oh, she's the good guy now, even though she's, like, never been... Like, only been in it as, like, a 5-year-old. So, really think about that, and then think how you might have spent, like, $24 to see that in, like, IMAX, but then you go see John Wick in IMAX, and you're like, wait, well, this is... One of them is a piece of shit, and one of them is actually credible. It just is really whatever your taste in movies is. And I think that, the thing with John Wick is it keeps amping up. Like, following the exhilarating nightclub sequence, the momentum doesn't stop. There's the Arc de Triomphe, there's that overhead shot with the dragon breath, and the subsequent staircase bit, like, which is just funny, too, because there's even humor put in there, and it's hilarious. And I just think it's such a great, movie. And John Wick, like I was saying before, it exists in this world that feels both dreamlike and reminiscent of a comic book universe. What sets it apart, is its originality, creating a world that's detached from any specific source material. In this unique setting, the absence of law enforcement, adds to the enigmatic nature of the story. Instead, we encounter hordes of faceless, nameless adversaries, and their demise fails to elicit any sympathy. It's just like watching, a guy in a video game get killed. It feels like a world, that is not like even like a Marvel movie. It's very much its own thing. And the concept of time within the world of John Wick is blurred, adding to the mystique. There's the absence of ubiquitous smartphones and reliance on old radios and clocks contribute to the intriguing aesthetic. This deliberate choice adds this air of uncertainty, as if this story exists in a parallel, just time to us. And I just find it interesting. It's very much like, comic book in that sense. And yeah, I just think it's a remarkable action film. I don't think there are, movies like this. I feel like, Marvel over-explains itself. DC tries to copy that. You could have good versions of those movies, honestly. But I'm just saying that John Wick is all about telling a good action story. It cares about just that. And because of that, it's great. It's not trying to push an agenda, not trying to, say a bunch of shit. It's just trying to be a good movie, and it is. So that's why I love John Wick. So guys, thank you for watching my review, and take it easy, and see you soon.